Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Todd Talk. I'm your host, Todd Matthy, and this week I'm going to give you my thoughts on the finale of Game of Thrones. Before we get started, I just want to give a little word from our not-so-sponsor. It's my comic book, Robots vs. Princesses. You can get it on Amazon or at your local comic store or on Comixology. Links are in the description. Alright, so, Game of Thrones finale. I liked it. I liked the decisions they made. I think this was the right direction to go. I think this is how J.R.R. Martin's going to end everything. He always said that the ending would be bittersweet. And I think it was bittersweet in that basically it was, that life goes on, and that's just how it is, the battle is over, but there are more things that come up afterwards, and, everybody moves on, goes to different places. It actually really, I read a theory online that talked about how, with Lord of the Rings, how much George R. R. Martin was influenced by it, and how the Iron Throne is a lot like the One Ring. Oh, by the way, there's spoilers, so just letting you know. Anyway, back to my train of thought. How basically the characters are kind of they're kind of like archetypes from Lord of the Rings. In that the Iron Throne is the Ring of Power. Dany is Gollum, and Jon Snow is Frodo. And what happens is, pretty much Dany got corrupted by the power. It became her precious. The Iron Throne was her precious. But so she became like Gollum, only much more attractive, and just lusted for the Iron Throne and nothing else. Whereas, Jon didn't want the throne, and he ultimately, though, could not live in Westeros for political reasons, but all the same, and much like how Frodo went to the Undying Lands, Jon went beyond the wall with Ghost. Thank God. And his people, the wildlings, who he saved and who cared about him, and he's going to find his own kingdom. Kind of like, actually, in many ways, it's also a lot like the ending of the Conan movies, because they always talk about how Conan was finding his own kingdom. But that's another story. Same thing with what happened with Arya. Her adventures sailing west of Westeros. That's another adventure that's not going to be covered, and maybe somebody will pick it up, maybe it won't. But overall, I was satisfied with the ending. I really did, and even I got a little Seinfeld-esque where this small council was debating what's more important, ships or whorehouses, and I just got a chuckle out of that. And I liked how Bronn just kept bringing it back. So if you're living under Sir Bronn, he's got his priorities. Anyway, all right. So here's what I really liked about it. First of all, the cinematography was phenomenal. That one shot. Well, first, just how it was with the ashes falling like snow, and just how it was dark and dreary. It was shot on an ugly day. I thought that was great. And then when Dany, you see basically everybody lined up like they were in, kind of reminiscent of Triumph of the Will, in a little bit, like, with the Unsullied and the Dothraki standing, and then she comes at the gates open, and you see Dany come out dressed like Elsa. Anybody notice that? I did. Dressed like Elsa, and then Drogon's wings kind of come up behind her, and I thought that was almost like she was sprouting them. I thought that was just great. And then, I liked I liked her speech and the way she delivered it, like just the subtle things in that Amelia Clark did with her face, with her, just her voice, her intonation. Um, I just love. I mean, it was haunting, it was frightening, and it really sold that she had gotten mad with power. And the tapping of the Unsullied, with their spears, I thought really added to the atmosphere. I thought it was a great scene. Um, Overall, I guess I'm just gonna take this, character by character. Basically, she got corrupted by the ring, the Iron Throne, and like Tyrion said, she, the people who she was destroying, everybody agreed with her killing. I mean, slavers, yeah, I'm good. I'm down with that. The Khals, the Dothraki Khals, who basically sent her to be like a broodmare. Yeah, I guess you're down with that. Um, Everybody who she killed, Lannisters, Lannister men, yeah, uh, pretty good. So basically, she always thought she was right, and she was killing the people who were right. So if she's right, in her mind, if she's right, A, B, C, and D, naturally she's gonna think she's right to do F. And that's what she did. And unfortunately, when she did F, it was wrong. She killed innocent people. But she realizes, but another thing about her is that she believes in her words, that, she knows what's good. And then when she's challenged on it, she goes, they don't get to choose what's good. And once again, that was a great scene with her and Jon Snow when they were debating it. She, that was when Jon realized she was mad with power, and he had to kill her, because she would eventually go. She was going to turn her head towards Winterfell and Sansa. She even said it. And Jon, clueless though he may be, I mean, he did not want to see someone hurt his sister or his niece. I might be blanking out right now. So about that, I'm trying to think. Cousin. All right, what was I thinking? So that really, I mean, that weighed on him. And actually, here's the thing about what I think. Going with Dany before we move on to Jon. In many ways, this was actually foreshadowed again. Her death was foreshadowed in the House of the Undying. Where she saw Khal Drogo and her unborn son, who were dead in the House of the Undying. I think that was actually foreshadowing her death, though, looking back on it. I might have to do a rewatch sometime of the whole series. So, I also like the look in her face after Jon stabbed her. Just the shock, the horror, and honestly, the sadness. Because she really just wanted to be loved and was loved by her people, but everybody who she loved, cared about, relied on, just, died on her. And now she's betrayed her. And now the person she loves betrayed her. She just had a look on her face like she died unloved. Unloved, and, as maybe even as a monster. And maybe she just realized it in her final moments. Once again, this was a beautifully shot scene, very well acted by both Kit Harington and Amelia Clark. And then finally, I'm not done with this one yet. There was Drogon coming. I like how he just came by and like when he nudged her, it kind of was like when Simba nudged Mufasa in The Lion King. His mother was dead. Now his mother's dead. And he looks at Jon, and Jon thinks he's going to get barbecued. But Drogon realizes really what the problem was and just burns the Iron Throne with the dragon fire. I thought that was just, yes. It was just like, yeah, you know what? That chair that you were all fighting over, now it's gone. So says I, Drogon. I thought that was powerful. Then he just carries her off to who knows where. And who knows what's going to happen to Drogon in the future. But I like to think even the dragons were slaves of the Targaryens, maybe. And maybe a dragon's meant to fly free. Alright, next up, I'm going to talk about Jon Snow. This time around, well, Jon is often not very quick on the uptake. This time, I think he was, but he was in denial. It's like when when you're with a girl, or for the women watching this, with a guy, and they start acting differently, and you realize they might not be the nicest person. They're not the person that you think they are, but you remember like all the nice times with them. You've seen their good nature, all that, and because he's seen it, and then all of a sudden they turn out to not be who you thought they were. Although this part of them was always, but you know that it's what they are, but you just don't want to believe it. I think that's what Jon Snow was going through. I think he knew in the end that Dany was far gone. He just didn't want to believe it, and he had to hear it for himself. That's why he went to confront her. He had to hear it for himself. And he realized it's all true, and that there's no saving her. You're just not going to change her. And that's why he made the decision to kill her. I think he got screwed in the end a little bit, or at least I thought they did. I liked how he was like, there's still a Night's Watch. But when he gets up there, was he really being punished? Because look who's there to greet him. Tormund. The other wildlings who he helped and followed him. And, of course, Ghost. He's living out the rest of his days with his best friend, Ghost. And he goes out to basically, help them maybe find a land or go back home. But he's basically taking the Night's Watch and he's free to make it his own. Which, that was an appropriate ending for him. Although now you can say, if Sansa says, hey, Jon, you could come visit, I think he will be allowed to. What's going to happen? It's not like Grey Worm and the Unsullied are heading north anytime soon. They didn't like it up there, so I don't think you're going to see them there. Plus, the North is an independent kingdom, so they're not even bound by Westerosi laws, technically, which I will get to in a minute. But I thought his ending was appropriate, and he now gets to make his own, gets to make the world the way he wants it, which I think is a fine ending for him. Tyrion, I am really going to miss. I'm gonna miss Peter Dinklage in this role. I'm really gonna miss seeing Peter Dinklage on my TV doing that, playing Tyrion Lannister. Just the way he delivers. Tyrion was a witty character, but his delivery and how he can still be funny while still being very matter of fact. And, basically he put into words what we were all feeling about Dany. He really did. In many ways, he was like, guiding us. As he was guiding Jon Snow, he was guiding us. We didn't want to believe that she went mad. But in the end, it was her nature. And how everybody went along with it, and now including him. What am I saying? Including him. He too was went along with her and didn't want to believe she was capable of this, but he realized, she was, and he'd been through the Mad King. He'd been through, his sister. He was raised by monsters, with Tywin Lannister and Cersei. He knows what they're capable of, and he saw the exact same things in his father and sister in Dany. He was just targeting the right enemies at the time. And I liked how he summed it up, that, love is more powerful than reason. I mean, actually, that was Jon Snow quoting Master Aemon. I liked his reaction to it, but, it's a great line, and it goes and sums up what's going on in Jon Snow's head. He doesn't want to believe it, even though his head's telling him she's far gone. And, but his heart didn't want to, and his heart had to find out the hard way. As for Tyrion becoming the Hand of the King, again, well, I hope his tenure this time is much more successful than his last one. But judging by the small council and the new king, Bran, who he nominated, I think Westeros might be in alright hands. Moving on. Alright. Sansa. I gotta say, next to Jaime Lannister. Oh, and boo, I didn't have this in my notes, but I just remembered it. The scene where Tyrion finds Cersei and Jaime. That was a gut punch. And really well done by Peter Dinklage. Really well done. He really got all the emotions out of that. Then, again, he's a phenomenal actor. I can't wait to see more of what he does. Now, Sansa. Sansa Stark is probably the character who has changed the most in this show. She went from being, like, a naive Disney princess, in all but the singing, who basically was hoping that everything... First, she thought her handsome prince was gonna... Who basically just had the world... Basically just got, for lack of a better term, shat on. I mean, for the first... she thought she was marrying the handsome, kind prince, and he turned out to be, well, Joffrey, a sadistic, spoiled brat, who, with a very punchable face, really had one, who beheaded her father and basically was bragging about doing horrible things to her, which he never was able to do, which he never did because he was killed. She went from turning down rescue by the Hound because he wasn't a handsome enough knight, like in the stories where, the handsome knight saves the fair maiden. She believed that stuff was true. And she just kept waiting for all these people to come save her from the towers, and every time she did get saved, they put her in a situation that, in some ways, actually worse. When Littlefinger sold her to the Boltons, we won't go into that, and that was, after that was when she realized, no prince is coming to rescue me. There's no handsome knight on horseback. I've got to take control for myself. And not only did she do that, she became very savvy. She was worrying about how she was going to feed the biggest army ever. She was worried about, and she was worrying about, political things in Winterfell because she listened. She absorbed stuff from Cersei and everybody, about statesmanship. And she became very savvy. She knew her people, and she basically said, hey, we want it out of the Seven Kingdoms. And in many ways, the North was always kind of separate from the Seven Kingdoms. She was just like, you know what? We don't want any part of it. We're leaving. and I guess, and luckily her brother was in charge. It was now the king, and he was like, "All right." When you think about it, it's perfectly appropriate that she became a queen. Maybe not of the Seven Kingdoms, but you know what? She didn't want to be queen of the Seven Kingdoms. She wanted to be with her people and rule her people because she knows her people. She didn't want what happened to John to happen, but she, once again, right ending, and I think that was the ending a lot of people want, and they can't really find fault with that one. Next, we're gonna go with Bran. It's an odd choice. Here's the thing about it. When you think about it, it makes more sense when you think about the series as a whole. Number one, yeah, he can see into the past. That means he can see the past mistakes, so when he's making decisions, he can just be like, we tried that once, and it didn't work out too well. Maybe we could try something else. So I think that helps. But also, the show began with him watching his father behead a man for abandoning the Night's Watch. And he learned, the burden of leadership and what was considered noble leadership, which is, as Ned Stark said, the man who passes the sentence should swing the sword. Ned didn't want to behead the guy that abandoned the Night's Watch, but you know what? If you desert, it was punishable by death, and those were the laws of the land. And that's why he told Bran he had to do it. And maybe while Bran didn't like it, it was the burden of leadership. And I think Bran I think now he understands that. So how he'll be as a ruler, who knows? But he's got Tyrion there to advise him, and Sam, who I thought, great as a maester. Perfect role for him. And you know what? It doesn't bug me. It doesn't really bother me that Bran became king. I like it. You know what? In the end, this show was really about the Starks because the Starks drove the show. They were the first family we met. They were always portrayed, and they always were the moral core of the show. No matter who they came in contact with, the Starks always remained true to themselves. Up next, who else am I going to look for? I think Bran can warg into Drogon because he mentioned he was going to look for him. So, I wonder if he speaks dragon. That'd be pretty cool. Now, finally, Arya. Definitely the most appropriate ending on the show. I can't think of a better ending. She's not a lady. I don't want to be a lady. And, like she said. And, she doesn't really want to be tied to politics. She wants to have adventures. She wants to explore. So, she's going to sail the seven seas of Westeros. And, songs will be written about her. And she's going to find what's west of Westeros. And that's where we need to go. And if they want to do a spin-off, I'm cool with it. I'd love to see more Adventures of Arya. Alright, let's go to what I didn't like. First things first. This is something of the series as a whole. The direwolves were useless. I mean, I guess in the books it's going to be different, but we thought they were going to be they were treated as this big deal, the first direwolves in generations born, and all of them got killed or thrown away and forgotten. Nymeria, okay, she came back for one scene and then ran away from Arya, and or weren't even gonna get pet by their owner, Ghost. And Ghost was in one scene, not in another. In one scene, not in another. Didn't really do anything significant. I'm like, what was the point? But, that's how George started his story, and I guess they felt the need to have him. Which is basically, the big. I mean, my other critique obviously is the pacing, but I talked about that last week, and everybody's talked about it. It's been done to death. I don't think there's anything new that can be said. I do think this episode was written probably before they even had pacing problems, and it was just like, just get us here. Just get us to these last two episodes, I think was the call, the mantra for this season, and probably last season. Would I have liked more episodes? Absolutely. Would I have liked more time for us to see these changes happen? Yes. But we didn't have it. We knew that going in. We can cry about it. It's not worth signing any petitions because it's not going to change. It's kind of silly. But overall, we did get to the ending that I felt we needed to get to. For the people that hate it, I get it. I mean, this is a polarizing show, and I knew going into the final season that people were going to hate the ending, and I think the writers knew that was going to happen. That not everybody was going to be pleased. You can't please everybody, but they went with what they felt was the right ending, and they built towards the right ending, and it felt, natural, like the right ending. So, despite its flaws with pacing and some of the decision making, why didn't they just kill Grey Worm or whatever, the political decisions that they made. Yeah, it was rushed, but in the end, timing, and it was what it was. Some people complained there was a water bottle in there. I didn't notice. I really don't care. And I think if you're going to nitpick the Starbucks coffee cup, you need to find something better to do. Because honestly, I didn't even see it when I first watched. So it didn't. It's nothing. And you know what? They corrected it. So, guess what? Problem solved. Time to move on. I guess for a lot of people it was slow, but after that last episode, I mean, what were you expecting? Another fight? Another war? I wasn't. And final episodes for Game of Thrones are always calm. Yeah, okay, so the small council scene felt like it was last seen in Seinfeld, but you know what? There needs to be some levity after all the, after everything that happened last week and everything that happened in the first half. I don't mind seeing my characters happy every now and then, especially in this world. So now, I guess I'm going to talk about overall my thoughts on Game of Thrones as a series. I still consider it one of the great. Overall, I think it's one of the greatest TV shows of all time. It got me to discover the works of J.R.R. Martin. I remember, hearing about him, just this guy that was famous and wrote a bunch of fantasy novels. And then I watched the show and I loved it. And I remember emailing the people that run Westeros.org and saying, hey, can I go into the rest of the books after just seeing the first season? And they said, yeah. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And I couldn't stop reading them. I then went to discover his short fiction. I went and discovered his other books, and I highly recommend The Armageddon Rag. It's about some cult that's using a rock band to bring about the end of the world. It's really well written. And it's told from the point of view of a rock journalist, so it kind of reminds me of my days when I was writing for Examiner and Metal Machine. So I really enjoy in covering music, so I really enjoyed that. And he actually made me a better writer by making me rethink my writing. Making me think, maybe don't go down the safe path. Maybe see where things lead. And, I'm going to say it right now. if it wasn't for Game of Thrones, there would be no robots versus princesses. Okay, it directly inspired me because, when I was thinking in that elementary school classroom about my robot and about my princess, the first one to come to mind was that I was like, let's make this interesting. Arya Stark as a Disney princess. And lo and behold, we got Princess Zara, born right out of Arya, and that was how I was thinking. I was thinking, okay, what would Arya be like in a Disney school for princesses? And the character just flowed from there. And if my dream ever comes true, that there's a robots versus princesses animated movie, I'm saying it right now, Maisie Williams. If you want to play Zara, I will carry your bags to your hotel, and I will carry whatever you need. I will carry it to the recording sessions. All right. So you're gonna get a. All right. So just think about that. I'll carry your bags, drop them off. No problem. Be your personal chauffeur for the whole time. All right. If you play Zara, you'll get that plus whatever amount of money the studio's gonna pay you. So just throwing it out there. But yeah, Game of Thrones, I had fun debating fan theories with people. I loved watching it with people at my restaurant, one of my favorite restaurants, the Bayou. Just having that shared experience, doing Game of Thrones trivia, and then just discovering the world, of Ice and Fire. It was a very fun ride. It was a great ride, and you know what else? It got people and friends of mine and family members who won't even look at fantasy or just, liked Lord of the Rings, but then they thought, hey, this is pretty cool. And it did that, so it made people start liking fantasy. You really can't say it was, what it gave people, what it became, how it affected people. Even if they didn't stick the landing, it was still a great show. And I'm going to miss it. But, when you decide the time is right to end a show, it's usually right for a reason. Because you don't want the show to go on and everybody being like, oh my god, this sucks. For example, 24. I guess that's all I really have to say about it, about Game of Thrones in the end. I enjoyed it. It was a bittersweet finale. I'm going to miss it a lot. But we still have the books, and I am looking forward to them. So, okay. Thank you very much for tuning in this week. Next week I'm going to talk about Avengers Endgame, and then I'm going to get into maybe some wrestling talk, and maybe even do. God, this may be a thing with fan entitlement, but whatever. This is what this show's for. Maybe even give you a look into how I write when I try to rewrite the WCW Invasion for this show, for you guys. Okay, till next time.